But without much time wasted, let me welcome the President of Nigeria Gas Association and Managing Director of Shell Nigeria Gas, Mr. Ed Ubong, as he talks to us on natural gas revolution, the most significant energy development in decades. You're welcome.
Good morning, Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum, the DPR Director, Engineer Sowell, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I beg to stand on the existing protocol, as already proven by the DPR Director and Mr. Tony Atta, the CEO of LNG. It's always a big challenge to come up the stage after Tony. Yeah, but I would try to say a few words. Some of it you probably have heard before, but I hope that at the end of 5-10 minutes, I'm able to share at least some additional insights on gas. Just over 60 years ago, oil overtook coal as the world's largest energy source. In 1965, oil accounted for about 41% of the global energy mix. Coal made up about 37%. Gas was about 14%. You fast track that to today, natural gas accounts for nearly 25% in the global energy mix. While the share of oil has declined by over 50%, you can see that the share of gas itself has actually doubled. According to the GECF, gas is the fastest growing fossil fuel, and it's the only fossil fuel that will continue to grow as we approach 2050. We still expect it to grow as we move towards 2030. What you can see on the slide there is gas production doubling, gas exports also growing at about the same rate, and the demand and consumption also growing as different countries put natural gas to use, driving their industrialization, driving the support of big industry, petrochemical plants, refineries, fertilizer plants, to meet its own short-term economic needs. But I would then sort of come back a little bit. This is really no surprise. Natural gas continues to gain momentum. Why? Because it is affordable. It's clean burning. You can sort of tap its benefits directly, and it seems to be the only natural ally for renewables as we move into the energy transition. The energy landscape is changing dramatically. There is significant pressure to move to renewables globally. I mean, we heard on the panel how difficult it's becoming to be able to raise finance to drive oil and gas projects across the globe. This is a pressure of the increasing drive for renewables. But even in the face of this change, it is clear that gas will continue to play a key role as a bridge fuel as we try to meet the renewable targets, but it will enable us to sort of meet our sustainable energy demands today. Providing more energy to people while reducing the impact on the planet is one of the 21st century's biggest challenges. As the global population continues to rise, as the CEO of LNG showed us, that's also the same rate that the demand for energy is increasing. Currently, renewable sources account for about 20% of the total energy that is consumed worldwide. To be able to meet then that balance, even as oil is declining, we need to harness our gas resources. But it is important to say that as we harness the gas resources, we must do it in a way that is cleaner. We must do it in a way that we reduce our fugitive emissions, because gas consumption, production leads to methane emissions. So we need to look at the safety mix as we try to sort of harness as much gas as we need. But what is the position in Africa? Today in Africa, gas only accounts for 5% of our energy mix. So think about it. Globally, it's 20%, but in Africa, gas is only about 5% in our energy mix. That's where the real opportunity is. How do we use gas to meet the energy needs of people in Africa and in Nigeria? Where does Nigeria sit in the global and local gas landscape? This morning, we heard the DPR director declare new reserves figures for gas. As at last night, according to the OPEC 2020 bulletin, we were ranked 8th. But it appears we may be able to move one step by the time we put in the 206 BCF that we had this morning, but we will see. The real question, and it's in nobody's mind, is that Nigeria is sitting on a large, huge resource base of gas. But you then move one step forward. How much gas are we producing? We are a top 10 country when you talk of what we have. When you talk of what we are actually producing, we begin to slip back. We are in the top 20 range. But maybe you move a little bit further and say, yes, we are producing gas, but how much of gas are we consuming? How much of it are we using to drive our economy? Nigeria moves even further back. We are now in the top 50. That, I think, is the dilemma when you look at Nigeria today in the global landscape. But again, I would always like to paint the picture in two ways. You compare yourself globally, you think you have a lot of catch-up to do. But I also beg the audience that I want to compare myself with myself. So if I compare myself with myself, I think the gas development story in Nigeria has a number of positives. Over the past 30 years, we have doubled our domestic gas consumption. We've moved from about 200, yep. And today, in the domestic market, we have close to 1.2 BCF of gas flowing every day. If you look at the chart very closely, you will see that in 1999, something seems to happen where the graph started pointing upwards. 1999 was around the time when Tony Atta started shifting his LNG cargoes. But it was in 1989 that the LNG Act itself was enacted. And I think that was the first serious legislation that indicated to the world that Nigeria was ready for gas. Post-1999, you see then a big shift. Gas production is going up rapidly. Gas exports is going up rapidly. And while you can say that the domestic market has doubled, its growth has not necessarily been at the same pace with those two factors. And therein lies what we need to do today. How do we begin to make this chart a little bit more 3 lines or pointing north within a time frame that is less than 50 years? The declaration of a decade of gas by the Honorable Minister, by the President and the Honorable Minister, covering the period 2021 to 2030, is a realization by the Nigerian government that Nigeria is indeed a gas nation. Gas production, gas consumption needs to be accelerated. And I think the key word there is around acceleration. We must accelerate our consumption if we are able to utilize the gas we have over the limited period we have before the energy transition reaches a stop. For us as the Nigerian Gas Association, largest stakeholder group, looking at gas on a day-to-day basis, we think there are a number of thematic areas that we need to focus on. The first and most important one is that we must unlock the challenges that exist in the gas to power value chain and improve access to energy for the over 85 million Nigerians who currently have no access to electricity. We must address structural issues around the grid. How do we reduce distribution losses? How do we ensure that payments happen? How do we ensure that gas plants get gas reliably and when they expect it? This is a critical measure for success. If in 10 years we are where we are today, my view is that the decade of gas would not have been successful. So power to Nigerians remains the first and the most important success measure as we embark on this accelerated consumption of gas. Secondly, we must begin to unlock the industrial and manufacturing potential that exists in Nigeria. Large-scale gas-based industries, excellent work being done by the ESNCDMB, methanol plants being built, petrochemical plants being built, the Honorable Minister creating new opportunities for large industries to exist. And why is this important? And everybody speaks about Indorama. This is important because to bring commercial security to the gas value chain, you need a number of players who can pay for the gas they consume. Today, those customers are the big industries, the manufacturing plants, the industrial customers. Where I sit on my day-to-day job as Managing Director for Shell Nigeria Gas, and I know a lot of people say people don't pay for gas. As Shell Nigeria Gas, our receivables management is 99.97% as at end of March. I think it's even better than NLNG. Nigerian industries today pay for the gas they consume on time. We must enable more gas to them. We must build the right infrastructure to ensure that they remain up and employ the large number of people that exist in that sector. Thirdly, when you talk about gas to any Nigerian on the street, it's about cooking gas. My in-law the other day asked me, Ed, you are president of the Nigerian Gas Association. Why are we still buying gas in this house? I tried to answer the question, but I'm not sure I had a suitable answer. And I think this is the question that a lot of Nigerians will continue to ask. There's a lot of gas. We need to support the transition. We need to deepen LPG distribution. We need to ensure that we are able to move from firewood and its related environmental impacts to a position where a lot of Nigerians are using LPG to sort of do their day-to-day cooking. That will be another measure of success for the decade of gas. When Nigerians say, in 2020, I was burning firewood, I am now using cooking gas. And this penetration goes beyond the urban centers. It needs to go as deep as the rural areas where the real large numbers are. As a Nigerian Gas Association, we are very committed to work with the LPG Association and other people who are working in the LPG value chain to ensure that this transition happens during the time frame declared by the Honorable Minister. A fourth priority area, which of course you're already aware of, is that we must ensure that there are additional gas trains in the export market. As Tony has said, Train 7 will increase LNG's capacity by about 35%. But what we must do as a country is to ensure that LNG remains competitively globally. And that's when Tony talked about even more trains. So that when you look at the global map, Nigeria is moving up rather than backwards as Qatar attempts to put in place its next 30 MTPA train. Finally, Nigeria is the giant of Africa, although the South Africans have a different view. We must increase our connectivity across Africa. It starts with the regional scape where we've successfully built the WACP line. We need to put more gas into that line. We need to deepen that infrastructure. A lot of people say that where there is no gas pipeline, there is no gas consumption. But I usually beg to differ, because today there is virtual pipeline infrastructure. I look at Mr. Brooke, a pioneer in building mini LNG here in Nigeria. These are the various options that will allow us to stay ahead of the curve. Mini LNG, CNG, virtual pipeline operators who can get gas to where pipeline gas is not yet available. But what that typically does is that areas begin to industrialize without waiting for the pipeline networks to get to where they are operating. We need to close the interconnectivity that exists between the seaports, the roads, because that is how the industrial customers move their finished products into new markets. If we are to affect Africa positively, we need to be able to get our goods by sea, by road, by railway into new markets across different regions, south, north, east of Nigeria and across Africa. That's where the consumption is. That is the demand. We must deliberately do this. Success will not be easy. And the Nigerian Gas Association's view is that there are critical areas that need to be fixed short term. Short term for us is 2-3 years, if we are to be able to position ourselves to look into that decade of gas. The first one for us is around putting in place the right regulatory structure that would allow commercial activities to move ahead. Globally, we talk of a willing buyer, willing seller market. We need to accelerate towards that. While we may say we want to go slowly, but that needs to be very clear when we get to that point, because that drives investors to know that they're going into a market that will allow growth to happen, and it becomes a lot clearer for them. The PIB must be passed. I'm looking at our Honorable Senator representing James Manager. Sir, we need a PIB that is gas friendly. We need to move away from looking at the PIB as a source of royalty or rent. Gas must be viewed as an enabler for Nigeria to be able to develop over the next decade. Thirdly, it is important that we build the infrastructure that we need for tomorrow, today. The most successful regional infrastructure in Nigeria was built in 1989, the Escravos-Lagos pipeline system, the N.I.P.S. It's only getting full now, where we're now sort of doing the N.I.P.S 2, we're doing the OB-OB link, we are looking at building the AKK. If you do not build your infrastructure at least a decade before you get to the point that you will need it, your chances of success is slim. And that is why what the government is trying to do now to build the AKK, it's a strategic look into the future. If that line is not there, a long time before the decade of gas reaches steady state, we will not be able to get gas at the right price into the northern area and build the sort of demand that we expect. Finally, where we have gotten to today has been a combination of various initiatives. We have spoken about the Nigerian Gas Master Plan, a key piece of work that has helped to provide us a Bible to refer to as we have continuously tried to grow the gas market. It is the view of the NGA that all stakeholders need to work with the Ministry of Petroleum to transition the NGMP to the NDGMP, the Nigerian Decade of Gas Master Plan. As the NGA, we are committed to partner with all the key stakeholders to see what goes into that key framework. But where we also sit, we think that there will possibly be various plan iterations. There could be an NDGMP1, which takes us to 2030. We assess what we have achieved, what has changed globally. Do we then need to put in place another master plan for the next 10 years? But what this would do is that it would allow us to measure success. It would track what we need to achieve in the short term, and then it will also allow us to look back. If this is done, and you see my slide has a number of question marks, today there's about 5.5 BCF moving around in Nigeria's gas space. I think we can grow those volumes by up to 3 times. More importantly, I think we can move the current domestic gas supply from about 2.5 to somewhere in the 10 BCF range, which is a 4 times growth in local consumption, while also growing exports at about the same time. In concluding, 5 decades ago, natural gas was still seen as a nuisance. It was the unwanted byproduct from oil exploration. As Shell, we would drill, in the early days, we would drill an oil well. It is oil, gas. If it is gas, we will cap it. But now we're having the conversation around how then do we make that gas to work for Nigeria. We have seen natural gas transform global economies. Qatar is always a great example. But most of the countries in Europe wouldn't be where they are today if they had not harnessed the power of gas. According to the International Energy Agency, 1.1 billion people across the world currently lack access to energy. 50% of them are in Africa. Harnessing our vast gas resources is key to our own development because it gives us the ability to lift millions out of poverty, giving them the right economic means to meet their basic needs and well-being. It also gives us a pathway for development and growth, creating significant opportunities to build a viable manufacturing and industrial sector. At the NGA Gas Monologues and also at the N.I.P. Decade of Gas Summit in March, Dr. Joe Kang, the president of the International Gas Union, stated that energy is key to achieving 9 out of the 17 United Nations Development Goals. 9 out of 17, more than half. The African Development Bank is even more bullish. It says there that the high 5 priorities that need to be met for Africa's development can only be done if natural gas is used as the fuel source. There is therefore no doubt in my mind that natural gas utilization and development would continue to play a key role in Nigeria, in Africa, as we try to industrialize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President, Nigerian Gas Association and MD Shell Nigeria Gas at Ubong. Thank you very much. On Monday, at the Presidential Bill of National Assembly, we were told by the Senate President that the PIB is coming out in a matter of weeks from this week. Many of us have said we're waiting with bated breath. Some are asking, will